Let's hear it for Lillian Cumic. Aloha, Lillian.
Thank you so much, Lorraine, for the warm welcome. And thank you to all of you for coming out on this Veterans Day. On that note, I would like to thank all of the veterans in this room for your service and for keeping us safe. I became a US citizen 2 years ago on November 8. So I'm just marking my second year as a US citizen, and I couldn't be more proud to belong to a country such as the United States. Thank you, Mr. Wonderful, for your 30 years of service in the Air Force. And thank you again to the Hawaii Vegan Society for inviting me to come and talk to you all. It has been an interesting ride, to say the least. When Lorraine asked me to do a presentation on behalf of the Vegan Society, I was wondering what I would talk about. And as I started thinking about it, turns out I have a lot to bloody talk about. So lucky you, sit back, hold tight, because it's going to be a long ride. I'm going to try and get you back home at least by 3 this morning. This is my Nourishing Paradise concept. I just recently this year rebranded, and I am now calling what I do Nourishing Paradise. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how I veganize local Hawaiian foods. But before that, I would like to also mention that my books are made in Hawaii. I did do all 3 books with Mutual Publishing. So I'm very honored to say I share the same publishing house as the incredible one and only legendary chef Sam Choi. This is where my Nourishing Paradise concept came from. When I was thinking about rebranding last year, I used to call myself Lillian Vegan. That was what everybody knew me by for 30 years, Lillian Vegan. And then I decided that it was about time I used this name that my parents gave me. So I went back to my original name, Lillian Cumic. Nourishing Paradise is kind of how I sum up what I do. This is the new logo that was that we created with my branding expert, Tracy. So I have 4 elements: earth, the nourisher; fire, the energizer; wind, the uplifter; water, the healer. All of these things are pretty much how I look at food these days, all of these 4 elements. The logo and the mood board, these are the words that I told my branding expert that I would like to incorporate into the logo. So when I think about food, I do think about things like harmonious, seasonal, refined, accessible, urgent, healthy. All of these things are really important to me and for me moving forward with my next endeavor. But first, we must clear up the difference between vegan versus vegetarian. I know many of you here are plant-based, so you are very familiar with the term vegan, but I think it could be misunderstood sometimes by people. So let's just go through some of the types of vegans and vegetarians there are that make up a diet. So basically anyone who considers themselves a vegan doesn't eat any animal products whatsoever. That would be no meat, no poultry, fish, seafood, eggs, dairy, and even no honey. Vegans really don't normally consume byproducts of animal products, and honey is one of them. I also stopped eating honey when I became fully plant-based. Whole food plant-based. This is where you focus on unprocessed veggies or vegetables and fruits in their whole form, legumes, whole grains, nuts and seeds. This is what I kind of consider myself to be at the moment, fully into the whole food plant-based diet. A vegetarian, on the other hand, doesn't eat meat, but may consume dairy, eggs, or fish. Lacto-ovo-vegetarian, people who consider themselves to be lacto-ovo, exclude meat, poultry, and fish, but include dairy and eggs. So there's all these different different levels of, I guess, how people eat and how they identify when it comes to their diet. The bottom one, I think, is a popular one. Pescatarian excludes all meat, some poultry, but pescatarians do include fish, seafood, and often dairy and eggs. Pesca actually doesn't include fish. But that's basically the difference between a vegan versus the various types of vegetarian diets. This is a photo I took. It is the quote by Hippocrates that says, "Let medicine be thy food and thy food be thy medicine." It's such a wonderful way to look at food, because I think sometimes when I look at the American diet, it does often not look like real food. And food is supposed to help you thrive, help you nourish, and, keep you fueled. So this is a nice reminder that food really can be medicine, depending on our food choices. Here's a few photos from way back when about how it all started, because as a toddler, I refused to eat meat or other animal products. I didn't look at animals as food. I ate everything but meat, and I loved junk food. I loved junk food up until quite recently. Actually, I only gave up eating all the naughty things about 18 months ago. But if you look to the right, there's a little vegetarian baby. It's interesting because my parents actually took me to doctors when I was younger. They thought that something might be wrong with me. I refused to eat anything with eyes, a tail, feathers, anything that swam. I became, I kind of invented my own diet and my own way of eating. So when people ask me why I became vegetarian or vegan, it's hard to explain, but I can only say that I was born this way. If you look at what I've written about my brother Frank, who's 2 years older, complete meathead baby and still meathead. He's on the opposite end of the scale when it comes to our diets, but he does eat, to fuel his body, and he does make the choices that he needs as a fitness instructor. I've tried to get him to watch The Game Changer and documentaries like that, and he's always interested to hear what I have to say, but at the end of the day, we all, make our own choices. So we are completely different, yet we're so bonded. So on the left here, this is me. This is me when I was about the age when I was telling my parents what I was going to eat and what they were going to cook for me. Little did they know it was going to be a bit of a challenge. Thankfully, I came from both a mother and a father who loved cooking, who were very good at it. So I was surrounded by food the whole time, and it's no wonder I ended up doing what I do, which is, creating food. So as the years go by, I get to high school. I'm about to think about going into college. In my mind, there's no way I'm doing any of that. I just needed to find the right way to tell my parents. So I came up with this idea that I would, do go an audition for a modeling contract in Japan or France. So I went on that little trip of mine, that secret audition, and lo and behold, I got offered both to go to either Japan or France to model. So I came home from that feeling pretty good, and I said to my mum and dad, I'm just going to go away for 6 months to a year, and I'll come back and we'll talk about the whole college thing later. My parents were looking at me like, are you serious? I'm like, yes, got to live a little, got to follow my dreams. I was modeling in Sydney. I grew up in Sydney, Australia. I was a child. I grew up as a little fashion model and did all of that. I was also a ballerina, so very much into the girly sort of stuff. And when I had the choice of going to either Japan or France, I thought I might do Japan because I know nothing about it. And it just seemed like a really wonderful, mysterious place to start a new chapter. So in 1989, I had just turned 18 years old, and I left my home and my family with 2 suitcases and a dream. This is some of my modeling pictures and just some pictures I took at home, but that's what I did in Japan. So it was very exciting to go there and do fashion shows there. But immediately, as soon as I met the people that I would be working with, they looked at me and they said, "You have brown hair and brown eyes. We have a whole country of that." I was like, oops. Well, that didn't work too well for me. So it wasn't the most successful modeling career. But I have to say, if you look at the date, my last catwalk was actually in 2007 when I was 38 years old. So I did enjoy doing that over the years. And that was pretty much the last catwalk I did until recently. Around 20 years old, I'm living in Japan. I keep telling my mum and dad I'll be home one day, someday, and I keep stalling them because I've, at this stage, gotten married to a fellow Australian. When I was 23, we started an English school that I headed and ran and that I wrote all the content for. So I started writing actually in my early 20s and enjoyed it. Writing was something that I really enjoyed. I also realized that unless I learned how to cook, I wasn't going to be eating much in Japan because the whole cuisine is based around fish, seafood, very seafood-oriented cuisine. So I started delving into cooking, started cooking in my kitchen, and I actually became obsessed. I loved cooking so much, I said to my husband at the time, "I think I want to be a chef." And he was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I can do it." Because every time I cooked for people, they'd be like, "Oh my God, this is so amazing. You should sell it." I'm like, maybe I should, but how do you become a chef? I'm going to have to really figure this out. And so I made some calls, called some restaurants, some cooking schools in Japan. And basically I was told the same thing, call after call, that there was no way in the world I was going to get accepted into a school or allowed to work in a kitchen in a restaurant unless I was going to handle animal products. And there was no way I was going to do that. I was not going to go against my morals and everything, I felt about the world and about other living beings. So it ended up that I found somewhere, as I was searching a way to how I could get that title and become a professional chef, that if you run a commercial kitchen for 3 years or more in a restaurant or some sort of establishment like that, you will get the title. You don't have to go to school to become a chef. You can be a self-taught chef. So I said to him, at 30 years old, I'm going to open my own little restaurant. They call them dining bars in Japan. And he was like, okay. So I just kind of opened my own restaurant. I studied, I watched anything, read everything I could about the Japanese cuisine, and I was confident enough that I could pull it off. So it was April Fool's Day. I opened my dining bar. I called it Cocktail Oz. And the interior, I made the interior to look like 360 degrees of the view of Sydney Harbour to remind me of where I had come from. That's me at the dining bar. I don't have many photos of the actual dining bar, but that was a new chapter in my culinary journey. As I had hoped, it was quite successful. People were coming to try my food. They couldn't believe that I was cooking food that tasted like a Japanese had cooked it. And I had kind of opened up a new world for people in Sendai City, the city that I was in, showing them that really you don't need animal products to have tasty Japanese food. So that's how I became a chef. as the years went by, I was starting to get burned out. I must admit, my dining bar opened at 6 p.m. every night and closed at 3 a.m. Monday to Saturday. I did that for 10 years. And during that time, I started to realize that all I wanted to do was cook. So on top of that, I turned my home at 2006. I opened it up to cooking classes. I didn't want to do it in my dining bar because I had to get away from that scene, at least for a few hours of the day. So this is what I did. And it was one of the best things I ever did. This is where really I started planting seeds about my future and what I wanted to do. So these are the cooking classes, and the top left up here, these wonderful women. I taught them cooking classes for about 10 years while I was there. They stayed with me forever. They were so interested in what I was doing. I was learning, and at the same time I was teaching. So I've always been a sharer. I learn. I'm a student first, and then that's the platform from where I can really share everything I learn. So these are some pictures that the ladies in the photo there, they're going to show up later on in my journey. They were very important players in my destiny and how I ended up here. I love this about washoku. Washoku means Japanese cuisine. The first syllable wa actually means Japanese in kanji. So shoku means food and washoku means Japanese food. It teaches that every meal is an opportunity to create harmony, balance of flavor, nature, and gratitude all on one plate. The principles behind washoku, the Japanese cuisine, are so interesting, like unlike any cuisine I've ever come across. And I was so excited when I was able to write my third book about Japanese cuisine and just share everything that I learned. There was another important player in my journey. She's up there at the top, middle up there, little Lulu, my chinchilla baby. She came across with me to Hawaii. She's now 14 and a half and still the cheeky little monkey that she always has been. Here are some little things I write about in my diary. I was looking through my diary that I kept in Japan, and here are some of the things I wrote. The quiet efforts you make now are the roots of tomorrow's possibilities. So I didn't realize it, but this tiny private dining room was planting seeds for my biggest culinary opportunities. Those quiet dinners at home would one day welcome extraordinary guests. And boy, did they. I've had the opportunity to cook for so many amazing people, and so many of you who are in this room who I've had the chance to cook for. And I've been so blessed to have so many people come and sit at my table and enjoy my food. I was on TV quite a bit. I was invited to do shows and kind of popped up here and there. Nothing big though. There was no big breakthrough in Japan. Japan was a place I loved very dearly. I ended up spending 30 years, 3 decades of my life there. And I loved every minute of it. It is part of who I am, and it's ingrained in my whole being. But I did start to feel like I might be outgrowing some of the limitations that I was starting to feel there. In Japan, food is not just eaten, it is honored. I would have to say this is one of the first principles of, the Japanese cuisine. The way they honor food, it's an incredible thing to learn about. A reminder that nourishment is a relationship, not a transaction. This is at one of my favorite sushi restaurants in Sendai in Japan, with the same ladies that I spent a lot of time with. To cook in Japan is to listen to the seasons. When nature changes, the kitchen changes. We follow the rhythm of life. This is one of the reasons why when I do private 7-course dinners here on the islands, and I always have to tell my client that I can't promise I'm going to stick to a menu because food should be eaten seasonal. That's one of the things that I pride my cooking on. It will look different each week, even if it's the same course, because It depends on what I can bring to the table and, what the farmers can harvest for me. So Washoku is definitely about listening to the seasons, and the food will tell you what you're going to cook. The seasons will tell you. So this is one of another favorite place that I used to frequent when I was living in Japan. It's just beautiful. The simplicity of Japanese food, it's something I like to do here. And I think sometimes Japanese food gets a bit lost in translation and gets very overdone when it's taken out, when it's done overseas. So I do try to bring the food back to its simplicity. But some people just like fancy shit. What can I say? Beauty is found in simplicity, in the space where flavor can breathe. Japanese food celebrates minimalism with maximum intention. Some of these things that I have written here, these quotes, are things that I wrote in my diary or just thought about when I was writing my third book. In Japan, we say that food has a spirit and it becomes part of ours. This is a huge, huge thing to think about, because if you think about food having a spirit, then surely you must be mindful of the choices that you make, because the choices you make and the food you put on your plate, it has such a humongous ripple effect on the rest of the world. Being mindful of your food choices is something I encourage people to do. Respect begins with how we grow, prepare, and share what we eat. Japan taught me that food is a moment to pause, to notice color, nature, and gratitude in every bite. Mindless eating is a thing these days. Have you noticed? I mean, we all do it. I catch myself doing it sometimes too. But if there's anything I can encourage you to do, it honestly would be to eat mindfully. Think about what you're putting on your plate. Be mindful, be intentional. Ask yourself where this food came from. That's how you start to change and align with nature and with other living beings and align with the planet when you start to make food choices that seem right. Definitely noticing the color, the nature, and gratitude in every bite. It's something I like to try and be aware of whenever I'm eating. These are just pictures of my ventures in Japan. Yeah, Japan's definitely a special place. I recommend put it on your bucket list if you haven't been there, because it can be life-changing. The way they do life, it's very honorable. Washoku, Japanese cuisine, is the art of harmony on a plate. The word washoku, I told you earlier, wa is the kanji or the character for Japanese. They also use the same character for the word harmony. Washoku can be translated into Japanese food or harmony of food. And I talk about that in my book, Hawai'i Washoku. So washoku is the art of harmony on a plate, nature, season, and spirit, nourishing the body as one. I'm not sure if many people realize, but I actually do the photography for all of my books. So these photos, this one was taken a long, long time ago, could have been 20 years ago, and still one of the photos that I did choose to put in my book. Just very simple. Japanese food can be very simple, but so beautiful at the same time. This is a picture of me at a tea ceremony on the left. When I decided after 10 years of running my dining bar cocktail Oz, I called it Oz as in Australia. I spelt it O-Z. I closed my bar, my dining bar, my little restaurant, and I turned my private home into a space where I could do private dinners. And I actually do that in my home still now. So I turned it into a space where plant-based cooking meet connection, teaching guests that food is more than taste. It's an experience. I still have this home. I rent it out. It's in Sendai. And as I enter my golden years, whenever that may be, I definitely want to spend more time in Japan. I think Mr. Wonderful would like to, I think, do that as well. It's such a beautiful place. So this is the home where I entertained and cooked for a lot of very influential people in the city. And I also did my cooking classes from my home. In January 2017, I hopped on a plane with my cooking class students who you saw in previous photos. We came to Hawaii, and it was my very first trip here. I have to say, I honestly wasn't really overly excited about coming to Hawaii because I was told that it's mainly Japanese and Aussies. I'm like, well, I already live in Japan and I'm an Aussie and I know what they're all about. So what do I want to go to Hawaii for? So I kept putting it off. But I ended up coming. I can honestly say the ride from the airport after I touched down, I was in a taxi with one of the ladies headed to Waikiki, our hotel in Waikiki. And she said, Lillian, look to the right. That's Aloha Tower. And I remember looking at the tower thinking, wow, that is so gorgeous. What a beautiful harbour. And I couldn't stop staring at it. It's so interesting how you plant the seeds in your subconscious, because I now look out at that view every day because that's where we live, on the harbour. And in my view, I'm looking at the beautiful Aloha Tower on a daily basis. So all these little seeds were planted. The picture here up on the top left, this was a picture I took of a photo in a magazine in Japan. I probably had it on my vision board. Are you all familiar with what a vision board is? Okay, it's not some voodoo board where I do witchcraft or anything, although I'm not sure because a lot of my a lot of my wishes do tend to manifest, and it's very interesting to watch these manifestations, come to life. That top left is a picture that was on my vision board in Japan that I looked at, and I put it on my vision board because in my mind I thought that would be a really nice place to sit and have a cocktail someday. I had no idea it was in Hawaii or Honolulu. I had no idea where it was. On the very first day I arrived in Hawaii for my 3-week trip, over there on the right, on the first day, I was invited to go to Sky Waikiki, the tower, and that was the picture that was on the vision board. 3 weeks later, 4 days before I was about to leave Hawaii and return to Japan, I met this man at Sky Waikiki on February 4th at 2017. The only catch-22 is he lived in Hawaii and I lived in Japan. But can you believe that from this picture on my vision board? First day I land, I'm at that actual restaurant, but I didn't realize that the picture on my vision board was the actual place where I had met my husband, Dave, until, I guess, 7 or 8 months later. And I was at home looking at my vision board, and I was like, I was in Japan, and I did FaceTime with Dave, and I was like, Dave, you're not going to believe this, but the very place we met, that's on my vision board. I had been staring at it for 2 years. Talk about destiny. And then we told people to save the date. He was so lucky, wasn't he? Look what he got. He didn't only get me, he also got a chinchilla cat. So I made the move to Hawaii. We were married on June 30th, 2018. Well, someone had to tie the knot with this man. It might as well be me. I mean, he did say you can live in Hawaii. I have moved here and I have been here since December 18, 2017. We got married 6 months after I arrived, just 3 or 4 days before June 30, before our wedding. This happened. Dave introduced me to Jay Fidel, who was the president and CEO of Think Tech Hawaii, where they did, it was just all on a volunteer basis, but we had YouTube shows. I had my own show. It was called Lillian's Vegan World. I was host of the show. I interviewed a lot of people. I ran my show, or I was part of it for 2 years. And then I had to, as I got busier, I had to pass it on to someone awesome, Dr. Grace O'Neill, who some of you know from the Hawaii Vegan Society. She did an excellent job. But a dream without steps is just a wish. Start walking. So as soon as I arrived in Hawaii, I was like determined to get, to promote the plant-based lifestyle, help people eat healthier and promote it any way I could. So this was one of the ways I did. I loved doing my show, and I learned a lot. I learned how to ask questions and how to listen. Then I started teaching cooking classes at Down to Earth. This became quite popular. I was doing vegan cheese classes. I would change the cuisine I was teaching. I did a Serbian cooking class that people still remember. I did all sorts of things, of course, Japanese cooking classes. This really got me out there, and I was able to meet a lot of people. Very interesting time that first year I arrived in 2019. So things were slowly moving for me. Then I ended up on the cover story of Crave, the Star-Advertiser's Crave magazine. Interesting, because talk about planting seeds. You'll hear later on what I'm doing now with the magazine. But they did this really wonderful cover story and called me the Cheese Whiz. How cool is that? I've been called a few things, but I'd never been called the Vegan Cheese Whiz. A vegan chef produces cheesy dishes without dairy. So yeah, they gave me it was a really cool story. I think it was a 2 or 3 page story that they did. So that kind of reached a lot of people, I must say. And 3 days later, we were married. We had our wedding ceremony. But because of this cover story, Mutual Publishing reached out, and they're like, we're very interested in talking to you about writing a book. And I turned around to Dave and I'm like, a book? I'm like, okay, acting like I can do this because, the fake it till you make it attitude. I'd never written a book before, but I must say I had probably at that stage 300 to 500 recipes that I had created over my career. So although I was lacking confidence in writing a book, I had no idea how that would work out. I did go and meet with them and talk to them, and they reassured me that they would be there to help me and guide me. After a few meetings with them, I put in my proposal. I was going to call it Vegan Aloha Old and New. And the publisher at Mutual Publishing, Bennett Hyman, said to me, I think we should call it A Vegan Paradise, Hawaii, A Vegan Paradise. And I absolutely loved that name. So he named my first book, the publisher named my first book, and off we were. My first baby came out October 2020. I had a photographer who came in to shoot the recipes, and while he did a great job, I felt like he didn't capture the dishes quite the way I wanted them. So I negotiated with my publisher to do 80% of the photos. So I redid them myself, and I wasn't really happy with the cover photo. They wanted me on the cover. I was okay with that, but I just didn't like the photos that the photographer took. Nothing about him. I wanted something different. So I put on this top, put a bit of makeup on. Dave came home from work one day and I said, Dave, take a few photos of me outside on the lanai. He's like, okay. So he literally got his iPhone, went snap, 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 took 2 or 3 photos, and that's all we needed. I looked at it. I'm like, this is the one. This is it. It has to be this one. I showed it to Mutual Publishing. They loved it. So this is my 2-3 minute photo that ended up on the cover of my first book. Thanks, Dave. It's interesting because when I first moved to Hawaii the year prior, 2 years prior to that, the first thing I did actually was look around and see if I could find a vegan cookbook and about Hawaiian food. And I couldn't believe that there was no cookbook that had been published on Hawaiian food that was plant-based. So there was my niche right there. And people would say to me, but what do you know about Hawaiian food? You spent all that time in Japan and surely you understand Japanese food. But here's the thing about me. My mother is from Fiji. So I grew up on Polynesian food. I grew up on pretty much the same food that Hawaiian people eat. It's very, very similar. So I was very aware of the flavor profiles, the food, that they had different names. But I was lucky because I grew up on the versions that my mother cooked for me, which were plant-based because I never ate meat or fish. So I already there was a big opportunity for me to really make this book work thanks to my background. So thanks, Mum. And here we go. That book came out and suddenly Chef Sam Choi's sitting at my table, Chef Alan Wong, my book's at Barnes and Nobles. I'm not showing off to you. I'm just trying to share how the journey ended. Things happened so quickly in Hawaii. Hawaii really embraced what I was doing, and I'm so grateful. I found my place. Time goes on, and after my first book came out, I'm on the cover of Midweek, Hawaii. That was so exciting. There's the photo shoot down there. This really opened up quite a few doors for me, and really helped promote my book, my first book, and what I was doing. So very grateful to Ron Nagasawa, who really believed in what I was doing, trying to bring light to Hawaiian food, but from a plant-based lens. This is the actual photo shoot of the first book. There's my kitchen where all the magic happens. I remember that day very clearly. It was really friggin' long. But look up the top left. There's my vegan Loco Moco. I ended up in the UK's biggest plant-based vegan magazine, Vegan Food and Living. That was very exciting. They did a little write-up about a couple of recipes from my book. So yeah, things were going well. 1 year after the first book came out, I said to my publisher, I'm going to write a second one and I'm going to do the modern version of food. And he was like, go for it. So I got book deal number 2. And again, I got Dave to come downstairs to our pool deck. And I'm like, Dave, you have to shoot the cover for me again. So there's us on the right, just in front of, on our pool deck. That's where this cover came from. Thanks, Dave. You really bring out the beautiful in me. Okay, so book number 2 comes out, and I have all the support again from such incredible chefs. I'm so humbled to be, able to cook for people like Alan Wong and Sam Choi. It's just, and yet, 2 of the best chefs in Hawaii, yet so down to earth, so supportive, so incredibly kind and ready to help me and support me in any way. So from the moment we met, they both said, tell me how I can support you. I'm like, don't worry, I will. I'm going to get you. I'll come get you. Don't worry. And so after the second book, I was back in that UK magazine. They did another spread on some of the things I do with mushrooms. King oyster calamari. Did you know that you can turn a trumpet mushroom, a king oyster mushroom, into calamari just by slicing the stem, getting a cookie cutter, cutting out the center, and then you have the calamari. Deep fry it in batter, and away you go. It has the same kind of mouthfeel and texture almost as calamari. So some of the creative things you can do with mushrooms. This is how you make carrot salmon. This is one of my signature dishes. Carrots, bake, peel into strips, marinate, equals carrot salmon. Baked fries with homemade Worcestershire. I wanted to show you how I photograph. These were taken on my lanai. Baked potato, baked kabocha, and pesto pasta. These are pictures from my second book. I did some interesting things in my second book. I used all of my husband's Aloha shirts for the background. If any of you have the second book, Tasting Hawaii Vegan Style, you'll see all of his shirts in the photos. And when I ran out of his, I used mine. The top left is one of my dresses. And this bottom left, this is one of the chairs on my lanai. So, yeah, these are some of the soups. A good soup is like a hug you can taste. All plant-based. This cheese is nuts. I called my chapter of vegan cheeses, "This cheese is nuts," because literally all of these cheeses were made from nuts. The humble cashew nut. The feta is made from tofu, and the rest are all cashews. It's incredible what you can do with nuts these days. The top right, I did 6 or 7 different types of macadamia nut palm, inspired by my friend Erin Olivari of the Vegan Cheese Shop, who sells the most amazing vegan parmesan on the planet, I'll say. Yours are the best. So, yeah, things you can do with cheese. If you're scared of going vegan because you can't give up the cheese, trust me, there's a lot of ways you can make cheese. 2 years after I was on the cover of Crave magazine, I was asked to become a columnist, and one of my proudest moments. So I still do that today. I'm on my 3rd year. In January, it will be my 4th year as a columnist for Crave. And I basically introduce, I review restaurants, I do recipes. They kind of let me write about wherever my heart goes. So these are some of the articles I have done trying to help promote plant-based cooking and plant-based options in restaurants. In 2022, I ventured into the world of artisanal vegan chocolate making. These are some of my chocolates that I created, and I was selling them at the farmers market. The same year, I started delving into baking, and I took Le Cordon Bleu's very first plant-based pâtissier course that they offered during the pandemic. It was not in person, which suited me fine, so I was able to concentrate on this 3-month course. Talk about sugar. There was a lot of sugar, yes, a lot of sugar going on in our home. As the course went on, so were the pounds started packing on. But that's some of the beautiful food that I was able to make. Japan was definitely calling my name. After my 2nd book, I knew in my heart that I had to write about this amazing country I was so blessed to spend 30 years in. And all I needed was the title. I couldn't come up with the right title. And I kept saying to Dave, I don't know what I'm going to call it. And of course, things like that come to you when you least expect them. So in the middle of the night one day, it came to me, and it was Hawai'i Washoku. So that's the name of the book. That picture on the right was a potential cover for the book. We had a toss-up at the publishing house to use the picture I had taken of the Japanese course, the kaiseki course, or that one. Well, we ended up choosing the one on the left because my publisher said I didn't look Japanese enough to be on the cover. I probably should have told him I was not trying to look Japanese. But I'm glad it worked out the way it did. So here's how you veganize some things in my book. This is another one of my signature dishes, the bell pepper ahi. It starts from a roasted bell pepper, just roasted at 425 degrees for 40 to 50 minutes until blackened, peel, cut into the shape of fish, and then top the sushi rice with the bell pepper ahi. So simple and so delicious. I talk a lot. I did a whole chapter on pickles because pickles are a huge part of the Japanese diet. And this is a particular type of rice bran where you ferment pickles, very different. If any of you have this book, I highly recommend you try doing that. Blanched vegetables are a thing in Japan. Blanched chrysanthemum or watercress, cook in boiling water into ice water, squeeze, and then chop. That's how they eat their vegetables there in Japan, very popular. Here are some things you can do with the king oyster mushroom to turn it into sashimi. It's amazing that just from that one king oyster mushroom, you can end up with a plate that looks like fish. Here you can also make ahi with tomato, doing the same thing, just blanching the tomato, cutting it into fish-like pieces and topping it with some sushi rice. Konnyaku, squid. Konnyaku is a type of potato. It's not very popular here, but how can I explain it? Konnyaku, it's like almost like a hard jelly type of food. It has 0 calories, and a lot of people who are dieting eat konnyaku. It ends up in a lot of soups, or it is also eaten sashimi style. So we can turn it into a type of squid as well. So that's how you veganize squid. This is all tofu tamago yaki planted egg roll. Amazing things you can do with a block of tofu. When my book Hawai'i Washoku came out, Japan started showing some interest in what I was doing. This is a magazine called Otona no Hawaii, Adult Hawaii. They found me and got into their magazine. Then a few months later, they let me know that they would like to do another spread with me. That was awesome. They were in Hawaii. They came to my home. I cooked them a 5-course lunch and they took photos of it. But this was definitely one of my proudest moments, getting into the Japan Times after living in Japan for so long and being told at the beginning, being laughed at about wanting to become a chef and not wanting to handle animal products. There was a time when I wasn't sure I'd be able to become the person I knew I wanted to become, which was a chef. So to get this kind of recognition, the story is on the bottom, was the back page of the Japan Times. My friends there were so excited. Everyone bought a copy, and it was just a really cool moment for me. Another magazine I really wanted to get into, which I had on my vision board, was Modern Luxury. So after that 3rd book came out, they finally did put a recipe in me. They added one of my recipes in one of their editions, one of their issues. That was exciting, but I'm like, couldn't you have put a photo of me in it? Like, come on now. So I didn't get that picture in the magazine, but I was very excited. Does anyone know who that is? Yes. I had the incredible opportunity of cooking for him. I did a 5-course meal for him in our home, and he called me. He said, "You're like a culinary alchemist." That's what he called me. It was just, I met him on a few occasions. He was amazing. But it is the man on the top right, Ron Nagasawa, who's played a huge role in my career. He is the one of the editors at Midweek. He's the Midweek columnist, Ron Nagasawa. Very loved in Hawaii. He has really opened up doors for me and given me so many opportunities. Also the position at Crave magazine to write about my passion for plant-based cooking. Last year, did any of you hear about my favourite chef competition? I entered favourite chef, Taste of Home's favourite chef, and I ended up coming runner-up. It was a very, very long competition. It went for 4 months, runner-up out of 95,000 contestants. And one of the ladies behind this force was Lorraine, who was such a support. So thank you so much, Lorraine, for all of your help. Honestly, you were amazing. I got on Jessica Lani Rich's show, Inspire You, and me. They flew us out to New York. I ended up taking my brother from Sydney, flying him over to Hawaii, and then we flew to New York for the favourite chef photo shoot. Not long after that, 1 month after that, I was in Modern Luxury, but I was being honoured, get this guys, as one of Modern Luxury Hawaii's Dynamic Women 2024. Thank you. Got my photo in there finally. Fun stuff was starting to happen. So that was definitely an honour, and yeah, I still very blessed for this honor. Same year, again, 2 months after, in October, in 2024, I was followed for 1 year and asked to be featured in season 1, episode 1 of a new show called Following Journeys, hosted by the amazing astrologer Alice Inouye. So my episode opens the season, and it is now on season 3, I think, season 3 of the show. They debuted episode 1 at one of the movie theaters, so I was on the big screen. How bloody exciting is that? This little vegetarian baby suddenly from Sydney on the big screen in Hawaii. I remember looking around and looking at Dave and thinking, the hell did I get here? It's like, am I worthy? You start to wonder. But then I go, of course I'm worthy. Oops. Then this happens, May 2024. Little bit of a health scare, which, pardon me, turned out to be exactly the wake-up call I needed. So I got home after I was told a few things were going on. I stopped drinking that day, that very day I stopped drinking alcohol, and I literally became whole foods plant-based within a week. I did not want to be on the trajectory I was headed, which was downhill. All of the wonderful opportunities that found their way, to me, my career ended up that I was invited to a lot of events. I was drinking a lot, eating a lot of making a lot of poor food choices, and it affected my health. I had put on so much weight since moving to Hawaii. Fries and beer, they were a daily thing for me, and I just had to make a change. So I did all these things, but the main thing really, I think, was cutting out the alcohol and just going whole foods plant-based. That was the first thing. And I did it by reducing sugar, oil, and salt, which is something I know the Hawaii Vegan Society, really encourages you to do, and I would as well. And your taste buds get used to that. So here's my daily dozen things that I have to eat on a daily basis that have helped me regain my health, I guess. So from 18 months ago, I do all of this and I eat healthy. I fast for about 20 to 21 hours a day. I have always been an intermittent faster. So contrary to what people think about, being a chef and probably eating food all day, I actually eat only during a very small fasting window. So here are some of my non-negotiables that I really make sure I consume daily. Highly recommend all of them. The apple cider vinegar, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. I call this my fake Coke. I used to love drinking Diet Coke. So now I drink sparkling water. I think you call it club soda, with a tablespoon of either apple cider vinegar or balsamic vinegar, soda water, and a little bit of lemon juice. And that's my fake Coke. I encourage you to try it. It's pretty good, and it helps you digest and with the glucose spikes before you eat. Back on the cover of Midweek again. Oh, that's exciting. And I ended up becoming the chef ambassador for the Hawaii Hotel and Restaurant Show as well, and shared the cover story with Chris Bailey. Got to meet all these wonderful people, and I got to work with the amazing Nancy Bernal, who's a wonderful friend of mine and very well known here in the entertainment industry. So that was fun. 30 pounds later, thank you, 30 pounds lighter. So I wasn't sure about this, so I'll be honest about the modelling thing, but it turns out I really do like fashion shows, and I've always loved fashion. I mean, shit, look at what I'm wearing. I call this conservative. You should see me when I'm not conservative. So I did this Ann Number fashion show was for a fundraiser. And then I did this other little fashion week, a show in July of this year with some local designers, mainly Filipino designers. This was something that I really enjoyed. The Al Waterson Celebrities in Their Pets fashion show. The late Al Waterson was a huge animal lover. So his wife, Nancy, gets a bunch of celebrities. Thank you for including me in that. I walked in a celebrity fashion show. Yeah, that was awesome. Then we had the holiday craft and gift fair where Nancy had me model a couple of the designers' dresses on the morning show. That was fun. And so what's next, you ask? Well, I think it's about time we had a plant-based cooking show from Hawaii called Nourishing Paradise. I'm just planting the seed tonight. You can follow me at Lillian Cumic. I'm on Instagram, and Lillian Cumic is the name of my website to see what I'm doing. Dave has been a wonderful supporter, and he does come up with some really, wise things to say. This is one of my favorite things that Dave has taught me, and that is that Walt Disney has been quoted as saying, "I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse." And last year when I had that health scare, that quote kept coming up and popping up, and, we would talk about it often. So it's very dear to my heart. And now whenever I am creating a project or starting something, I call it my Mickey, my new Mickey. So I think Nourishing Paradise, the cooking show, is going to be my new Mickey, and let's see if I can get it done. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight.